Let's take a look at how to edit voting slides. So what we've got here is an example of a question with a correct answer set and all of the bars in the same colour, and this one's set to run on a countdown timer. So let's have a look at how to change some of those elements. So the first thing to remember is that your text is always just PowerPoint, so you can just edit that as normal. But your graph and any settings that run the voting must be done by the voting software. If you've got something like this, where you've got, this is just set up as an animation. So let's open the animation pane so you can see that. So basically what we've got is just a yellow rectangle that we did right click and then we said center back so that it was behind the graph. And I've now sent it all the way back. Let's get that one sent to the back as well. If I can get it to select, there we go. Okay, so that's just a rectangle. You can change the color for that just in shape format like normal. You can change the way the animation works from here. It's currently just on a fly in from the bottom, so it's going to work like that. So that's all just PowerPoint stuff. So what we're going to focus on now is how we make changes to the graph and to the way that the vote runs. So imagine that you were very happy with that slide, but you wanted to make another copy of it. So let's just duplicate that, and we're going to put a new question here. So what month is it? And then we'll go into here and we'll say it's June, July. Terrible typing today, but you get the point. Okay, so we need more options on this one, and all of a sudden that doesn't work very well. So before I move on to changing the settings, I would just play around with my line spacing just within PowerPoint, because again, we're still working with text. So let's have a look and see what it's set to. It's on 2.5. Let's see if we go to 2. That's going to work a bit better. And at the time of recording, it's actually October. So I'm going to move that animation down so that highlight goes over October. Now, all that's done is changed the highlight we're showing the audience, but it hasn't changed any of our back-end settings. So let's get this graph lined up because it's not. So we want to see four bars change to 6 bars here. And then we want to line it up with our text here. So we're going to have a look at how to move that. Let's have a look at changing colors as well and setting our correct answers. So we've got a few bits to do on this one. So go to the add-ins menu, go to ClickerPad, and we choose Slide Editor. Now this brings you up all of the settings that relate to just this one slide. So the changes we make here won't affect the other slides in the deck. They're just going to work on this particular slide. So for each slide that you make, you're going to run through and do per slide settings to make everything work. So you can see that it's actually read my slide now because it's got those new options in it. So that's great. It knows that there's 6 items. So it will do 6 bars on the graph, but they might not currently look how we want them to look. Now, things to do with appearance I normally do last because we're going to spot them. The one that people most commonly forget is to change which one's the correct answer. So let's do that first. We go to quiz settings and it's not August. So let's click once and that's actually said it will go down to -1 point, but I don't want to take points away. I just want 0 points for wrong answers. And my correct answer is option 5, October. So I click there, and you can see that's going to give everybody a score of 1. So we've done the bit that's invisible first, and I think that's important. The next invisible one is how the vote runs. So this one is currently set to run on a 10-second countdown timer. If you wanted to give more or less time, you can change that in here. If you change the timing on the questions, you can use the apply to all button, and that will do the whole deck, not just this one slide. So every time you see apply to all, it only affects the slides with the changes made in the box that it's sitting in. So this is sitting in with the box with this section. So all of these things will change when I hit apply to all. Whereas if I wanted to move where the timer appears on the slide, that's in this box. So I'd reposition it in this box and use this apply to all. So that's something for you to try and get used to. But actually, I'm not going to make any changes to that. I'm happy with that being on a 10-second countdown. So let's move on to the visual elements. So let's go to graphing. And we can leave it as just showing percentages. We could say we want decimal places here, or we can show it by number of votes or a percentage and a number of votes. So you can play around with those and see what each of them does. But what we want to concentrate on is what the graph looks like. So let's go to here. Okay, so this is a problematic graph, isn't it, at this point? Not all of them are the same color, and it also isn't going to line up when we go to the full screen display in a moment. So the first thing that we can do, if we go into graph settings, we can say make them all the same color, and we can pick the color that we had before, or we can say make them all the same color, and we could pick a different color. Now actually they look better as they are, but just so that you can see the difference, I'm going to choose a different color from here. That could be by RGB if you wanted it to. You've got all the various settings to do proper colors here if you want to. So that's one option. Another option is if you wanted to do different color for every bar and you want to choose them, click the bar that you want to change and you can change the color here. Now I'm not going to do that, but if I changed it here and then said OK, then it would update. So we can pick a color and say OK. I'm just going to say cancel because I don't want to change the individual ones, but you can play around by clicking on each one and setting individual colors. So next thing that we want to do is get that graph lined up. So let's go to set graph position, and it will bring up a full screen preview of how this is going to look when we show it to an audience. So that's how our graph is going to look at the moment. Let's just unpin this menu because it's right in the way and I can't see things. So let's unpin that. And obviously that looks dreadful. So the first thing that I would do that, let's just bring it a bit nearer to the text so it's easier to line up. And then I'm going to go to the bottom here. And once I get double arrows, I can drag that. Now you'll notice when you're trying to do this, you do not get double arrows on the left or the top. So we do adjustments from the right and the bottom. And you can just keep going with that until you know that it completely lines up. So it's just overlap the text a little bit and get it completely lined up. And if we wanted to, we could adjust bar heights to make them line up with the text as well. So anything you need to do with the graph can be done in here. We can update our font like so. We can make that bigger, smaller. We can change the font type and effect if we want to. So perhaps we don't want italics because they're not so clear to read. Let's go with standard, and we can choose an exact size if we want to here as well. So we'll say OK, and you'll see that that's adjusted. Not happy with the size of the fonts, you can just adjust them here. Okay, so let's now just use, I've clicked on that box and I'm just pressing my right arrow because I've got them all at the right height, so I don't want to drag it with a mouse. So I'm using my right arrow on my keyboard to just pull them along a bit, and I'm going to make them very slightly fatter. Have another look. Once we're completely happy with that, we can click the X and that one is ready to go. So another invisible option that you might want to change, it actually is fine on this one, but I'm going to show it to you just as one closing piece on this, is to go to the Options tab and look at the position for our timer box. So if we say reposition, again, it's going to bounce me out of this editor and into a full screen preview of my slide. And if we wanted to, we can use our cursor to just drag that to anywhere we want on the slide. So pick a position that always works nicely. So up here actually is okay for this one. Click on the X. And if we wanted to do that across all slides, we would use the apply to all that's just here. Again, I'm not going to do that on this occasion. I'm just working slide by slide. So let's hit save and go. And we're all set with that one. So if we're now happy with that format and we want to make other questions and match the exact style that we used on that one, all that we would do is copy that slide and paste it into the new position, and then obviously type in your new question wording. So I'm not going to make a real question here, and then just repeat the process. Go back through the editor and make your changes. So that is how you edit a voting slide.